Making a New Year's wish landed me in the hospital. Half-conscious, I mistook the doctor for a nightclub model and even pulled out $800, asking the gorgeous doctor to let me touch her thigh. The stunning doctor, however, kept a straight face, pulled out her phone, and called the psych ward to come pick me up. But when I was discharged and went to a bar to hire a model, the same gorgeous doctor got upset and said, "Sincere, my consultation fee is only $60. You can do whatever you want." I simply smiled and replied, "Cheap things are never good." I had heard that if you ate 12 grapes and made a wish during the final 12 seconds of the New Year countdown, your wish would come true. So, after my shift ended, I rushed to a nearby grocery store. "Boss, I need a bunch of grapes," I exclaimed. The grocer picked up a bunch of green seedless grapes and asked, "How about these?" They just came in. Glancing at my phone, which read 11:55 p.m., I had no time to consider grape quality. Yes, those are fine. Please wash them quickly," I urged. After paying, I grabbed the grapes and, ignoring the grocer's puzzled stare, crouched under a table. Carefully, I counted out 12 grapes. With the countdown timer on my phone set, I waited. When there were 12 seconds left, I started shoving the grapes into my mouth, fervently wishing good health, a promotion and raise, and a girlfriend with a perfect 36D figure. Better than any model. But with 5 seconds remaining, I still had grapes in my mouth and more in the bowl. "Hurry up, eat sincere. I need to live. I need the model." Grabbing the remaining grapes, I stuffed them into my mouth and tried desperately to swallow. It felt like my throat was doing crunches to push everything down in those few seconds. Finally, I forced one huge gulp and got completely choked. I couldn't breathe. Stumbling to my feet, I pounded my chest and stumbled toward the grocer for help. Seeing me hitting my chest, the grocer chuckled, his eyes crinkling in amusement. "Kid, these grapes must be delicious, but there's no need to beat yourself up over them." I glared at him, pointed at my throat, and shook my hand desperately. He seemed to catch on or not. He mimicked my hand motions and said, "Happy New Year." "Happy New Year?" I was about to die in front of him, and all he could say was, "Happy New Year?" It wasn't until my face turned purple that the grocer realized I was choking. He performed the Heimlich maneuver, and suddenly I was like a human pea shooter, spitting out grapes one by one. Gasping for air, I managed to croak, "Thank you, boss." But as I caught my breath, a horrifying realization hit me. I wasn't just spitting out grapes. I was spitting out my wishes. My vision swam, and I blacked out. When I came to, my head was spinning. As I opened my eyes, I saw a woman in a white coat standing in front of me. Her features were delicate, her gaze gentle, and her eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses were clear and bright. Most importantly, her figure was stunning. A perfect 36D weight. Wasn't I dead? Was this some angel in heaven? Or maybe a final wish escort in some afterlife care program? Whatever it was, I decided to make the most of it. I reached for her hand and said, "Hey, beautiful, want to go out with me? I make $3,000 a month." Her brows furrowed, and she pulled her hand away. I quickly tried to salvage the situation. Okay, $800. Just let me touch your thigh." Her face flushed bright red as she turned to leave, but I grabbed the hem of her coat. "Please," I begged. "I've never dated a woman as beautiful as you in my life." She looked utterly exasperated. Just as I was figuring out how to persist, 2 strong hands grabbed me. I turned to see a chubby nurse pulling me away. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake her off. Annoyed, I snapped, "You? You're not worth more than $200. She rolled her eyes and said, "Sir, calm down. This is a hospital, not some strange place." I froze, finally looking around and realizing I was indeed in a hospital. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying this was all a hallucination. Could I still die now? Before I could explain myself, the beautiful doctor spoke coldly. "If he doesn't calm down, sedate him and send him to the psych ward." "Understood, Dr. Vicky," the nurse replied. I was speechless. Later, during Dr. Vicky's break, I rushed into her office before she could react. Bowing deeply, I blurted out, Dr. Vicky, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have coveted your body. Dr. Vicky, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have mistaken you for a nightclub model. Dr. Vicky, I'm sorry. I like you. Wait, what? My hands shot to my mouth as my face burned. Did I just say that out loud? Dr. Vicky's ears turned a soft pink. She bit her lip and said, all right, any more apologies, and I'll have to admit myself to the psych ward. My embarrassment was so intense I could have built a fantasy castle with my toes. Ready to flee, I was stopped once again. Turning back with a glimmer of hope, I heard her say, Sincere, first go pay your bill. Taking the paper from her, my eyes widened at the amount. $800? I mumbled under my breath, that's enough to hire. One time Victoria accused me of spending money recklessly, saying, so you can spend $800 on a model, but you think $800 is too much to save your life? Her tone turned colder, clearly sensitive to the figure. I quickly stammered, no, it's not expensive, not at all. Honestly, it's quite reasonable. In truth, Victoria was far more beautiful than any of those models. I shuffled back to the hospital room, an idea suddenly striking me. I opened the Tarot Masters app on my phone and transferred $188, messaging him, I want to know about my love fortune this time. The master responded immediately, as usual. Following the usual process, I silently meditated on my connection with Victoria while selecting 3 cards. Nervously, I watched the typing indicator on the chat. Soon the reply came, you and this woman share a bond spanning 3 lifetimes. Your energies are highly compatible. The better your relationship, the more prosperous your finances and career will be. Conversely, if things go poorly, you might face financial losses and bad luck. Panicking, I retracted my smug grin and immediately sought the master's advice. What should I do? I asked. He replied, sincerity can move mountains. I had an epiphany. Apologizing and groveling were small prices to pay. For money and for such a stunning woman, I was willing to go all in. Last night, I spent hours researching strategies, staying up until dawn. With dark circles under my eyes, I ran into Victoria during her morning rounds. She frowned slightly, glancing at the report in her hands, and asked, Sincere, did you not sleep last night? Are you feeling unwell? I pulled the blanket over my head and cheekily replied, I couldn't sleep because I was thinking about you. Victoria was speechless, her gaze turning evasive. From the next bed, an elderly woman chuckled and said, Oh, so this young man is Dr. Vicky's boyfriend? You two make a lovely couple. No, Victoria quickly denied. I chimed in, not yet, but soon. Dr. Vicky, would you like to date me? Victoria didn't respond. She practically fled the room, as if her feet were on fire. But how could I give up so easily? I made it a point to show up in front of her whenever I could. Dr. Vicky, want to grab a meal together? No response. That's fine, I'm even more smitten. Today you ignore me, tomorrow I'll still be here. The faster she walked, the redder her face became. Eventually she snapped, clearly frustrated. Sincere, what exactly do you want? Thick-skinned, I leaned in and said, I want to date you. No, she replied. Come on, please. I begged shamelessly. No. To avoid me, Victoria stayed in her office all day. I, not wanting to disturb other patients, could only linger by her office door, pining for her. I couldn't help but admire her perfection. When she wasn't talking, she exuded an icy elegance. But the moment she interacted with patients, she transformed into someone extraordinarily gentle. How could someone be so perfect? Even her hands were a work of art. As I marveled at her delicate fingers, someone nearby commented, Her hands being beautiful is the least impressive thing about Dr. Vicky. I turned to see the plump female doctor I had once dismissed as worth $200. Why do you say that? I asked, genuinely curious. She tilted her chin towards the crowd of patients carrying large bags and said, These people travel from far and wide just to have Dr. Vicky treat them. There are surgeries in this hospital only she can perform. Wow. The more I learned about Victoria, the more I liked her. At 1 p.m. sharp, I went to remind her to eat. She often forgot to eat when engrossed in work, so I took it upon myself to care for my future girlfriend's health. But when I reached her office, it was empty. Strange. Did she step out? As I searched around, I heard distant arguing. Suddenly, a nurse stumbled toward the nurse's station, her hands trembling uncontrollably. She cried out, "Security! Security! Get to the second floor, quick!" Her voice cracked with panic. I rushed over, asking urgently, "What's going on?" She gasped, Dr. Vicky is." My heart clenched. Before she could finish, I sprinted toward the stairs. The closer I got to the second floor, the louder the shouting became, and the more uneasy I felt. The second-floor atrium was packed with people. In the center of the crowd, Victoria was facing off against a man wielding a knife. She spoke softly, trying to calm him down. "Please, sir, take a deep breath and let's talk this through." The man shouted angrily, "Talk! You said my wife was fine. Why did she die less than a month after coming home? You quacks." A female doctor stepped forward, explaining, "Your wife hadn't fully recovered yet. It was the family's decision to discharge her early." The man grabbed the doctor, yelling, "What good is saying that now? She's dead. I want someone to pay with their life." He raised his knife, ready to strike. In the blink of an eye, Victoria pulled the doctor aside, narrowly avoiding the blade. But to my horror, the other doctor, either out of fear or clumsiness, pushed Victoria toward the attacker. Seeing the man raise his knife again, this time aiming at Victoria, I didn't hesitate. Bursting through the crowd, I charged at him. My sudden appearance startled him, but he quickly swung the knife at me. Pain seared through my arm as security guards tackled him to the ground. Victoria's eyes filled with tears as she shouted, "Sincere, are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea how dangerous that was?" Her hands pressed firmly against my wound, but my mind was blank. My legs beginning to give out. Taking advantage of the moment, I could still feel pain as I shakily confessed, "Doctor, Vicky, after I die, could you please burn a paper model of a 36D lingerie model for me?" Victoria looked speechless. With one hand pressing on my wound and the other covering my mouth, she snapped, "Stop talking." "Ouch, ouch, ouch." "Doctor, be gentle," I wailed loudly. With a stern expression, Victoria said, "Good, you know it hurts. Just moments ago, you were acting like you didn't care about your life." I grabbed her hand weakly and tried to flatter her. I just knew that if your hand got hurt, who knows how many people would lose their hope. Her fingers trembled slightly, and the tension on her face finally softened a bit. "Even so, you shouldn't," she began. "Come on," I interrupted. "A fortune teller once told me I'd live to be 100. Consider today's incident as me earning some good karma." I forced a grin, but the pain from the wound made me wince. "Superstitious nonsense," she muttered, exasperated. "Next time you face danger, just stay out of it." Got it, I replied with a pout. "But I saved your life after all. Why so fierce? Can't you be a little gentler?" She sighed, then held my hand in return. Feeling the warmth of her touch, my heartbeat quickened. "All right, you two, that's enough." The elderly doctor stitching me up cleared his throat, chuckling as he shook his head. "If you want to flirt, do it somewhere else." Embarrassed, Victoria stuck her tongue out but didn't let go of my hand. "Thank you, Professor," she said softly. The elderly doctor adjusted his glasses and gave me a thorough once-over before nodding approvingly. "You've got a good boyfriend here. Treat him well." Her face flushed scarlet, all the way to her neck. She reflexively tightened her grip on my hand and stammered, "Professor, he's not. We're not." I offered the elderly doctor a grateful smile and said, "Thank you, sir." As we walked to the door, the elderly doctor called after Victoria, "Oh, and don't forget to give him a tetanus shot." Fingers intertwined with hers, I thought about how this was yet another opportunity for some close contact. But as soon as I followed Victoria into the treatment room, I regretted it. "Take off your pants," she commanded. What the hell? I never imagined Victoria's first time seeing my butt would be for a shot. Damn it, why didn't anyone tell me tetanus shots go in the butt? Thanks to my heroic deeds and Victoria's indulgence in letting me spread rumors, now all the nurses and patients knew me as Victoria's future boyfriend. "Dr. Vicky's boyfriend is here again," a familiar patient greeted me. I nodded back with a smile. Victoria overheard and turned crimson. "Sincere, this isn't right," she scolded. "What's wrong?" I asked, puzzled. "You don't like it?" She hesitated, avoiding my gaze. "It's not that. I'm just worried it might cause you some trouble." Her voice trembled slightly, betraying her nerves. The more flustered she got, the more I enjoyed teasing her. "Well then, there's no problem. I'm perfectly fine with it." She nodded. "All right." I leaned in closer, causing her ears to flush even redder. She quickly stepped back and said, "Sincere, you're ready for discharge. Let's keep in touch through text about anything else." I was dumbfounded. Just 2 days ago we were holding hands tightly, and now? What happened? My world crumbled. While packing my things, I vented to my buddy Charlie. "Victoria went so far as to expedite my discharge report just to avoid me. Do you think she doesn't like me anymore?" Charlie teased. "A woman like her isn't easy to win over. Plus, she never admitted to liking you in the first place. So tell me, how did you even fall for her?" After thinking for a moment, I replied, "If I'm being honest, it started as lust at first sight. But the main reason is that a fortune teller said we're destined to be together for 3 lifetimes. I have to win her over." Charlie jumped up, pointing at me indignantly. "Sincere, you didn't go give that scam artist more money, did you?" I stayed silent, pretending to be busy. Charlie smacked me on the head. "Have you forgotten? Your ex was the reason you went to that fraud in the first place." I muttered under my breath. "That girl was bad for my finances. Breaking up was the right move." "So, you're saying you fell for Dr. Vicky because of some con artist's words?" he asked. "Pretty much," I admitted. In truth, while my initial attraction to Victoria was superficial, if it hadn't been for the fortune teller's words, I wouldn't have been so persistent. I wouldn't have discovered how genuinely captivating she is. To stop Charlie's nagging, I hastily finished packing. As I looked up, I caught a glimpse of a white figure flashing past the door. Could it be Victoria coming to see me off? I rushed to the door, scanning around only to return disappointed. She had told me to leave. Why would she come to see me off? Still unwilling to give up, I hurried to Victoria's office. Since it wasn't yet her consultation hours, I squatted at her door, refusing to leave. After my legs had gone numb, a gentle voice spoke from behind me. "Excuse me, could you wait a moment?" I turned around in surprise, locking eyes with Victoria. "Dr. Vicky," I exclaimed. "Ow." I hurriedly tried to get up, but my legs felt like they were filled with popping candy, completely numb and unresponsive. I gritted my teeth and tried to walk forward, only to twist my ankle and stumble straight toward Victoria. She froze, instinctively trying to move aside. If she dodged, I was bound to hit the ground face first. Without thinking, I reached out, grabbed her waist, and ended up clinging to her. Her waist, so slender, my hand unintentionally slid lower. Those abs. Being her boyfriend would be a blessing. Without realizing it, I blurted out, "Nice waist." Victoria pushed me off her face flushed crimson. "Sincere," she exclaimed. I stammered, unsure how to explain, and resorted to repeatedly bowing and apologizing. The door to the clinic slammed shut with a bang, startling me. Why was she so mad? I cautiously opened the door, only to be cut off by Victoria's icy voice. She reprimanded me. "Sincere, the hospital is not a place for jokes. If you're not sick, stop wasting our resources." Feeling awkward, I muttered, "I'm not joking, I just—" But her tone grew even colder. "I'm a doctor. I don't believe in superstitions, and I'm not interested in dating. Please stop bothering me, I don't like you at all." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I bit my lip, a wave of bitterness welling up inside. If she didn't like me, fine, but did she have to be so harsh? She continued, "You're already recovered. Please leave." She was kicking me out again. I just wanted to say goodbye properly, but the words got stuck in my throat. Swallowing my emotions, I turned and left. Later, I poured my heart out to Charlie, sobbing. She said she doesn't like me. Hearing my plight, Charlie slammed his hand on the table and declared, "So what if she's a doctor? Tonight, I'm taking you to a bar. I'll set you up with a whole lineup, models, nurses, flight attendants, take your pick. I sighed. I don't want models. I only like Victoria. My eyes felt empty as I mindlessly drowned myself in drinks. Then I heard Charlie exclaim, "Whoa! When did someone this stunning show up?" I followed his gaze and saw someone who looked strikingly like Victoria, standing there with a stern expression. Murmuring, "Gorgeous doctor," I stumbled toward her, my head spinning, and grinned foolishly. "Victoria, are you moonlighting? I'd like to book you." No, wait, Victoria must be busy saving lives. How could she be moonlighting? This model did look like her, though. But why did her face look so angry? "Why aren't you saying anything?" "Do you hate me too?" I asked, feeling annoyed as I gave her a slight nudge. Then she said, "Sincere, I don't hate you." Her voice, so familiar. I looked closer at her face and my mind went blank. Could it really be Victoria? I asked earnestly, "Victoria, did you get fired from the hospital?" She replied coolly, "I'm off duty today." Her eyes darted toward the women in the booth. "Sincere, you spent $800 on that model. What exactly can she do for you?" she asked. I counted on my fingers. Chat, drink, play games. She rolled her eyes. "That's it?" I didn't understand what she meant. She continued, "I heard $800 includes thigh touching. That's an extra charge," I clarified. Victoria bit her lip. "So you paid extra?" "Sincere, my consultation fee is only $60. You could have done whatever you wanted with me for way less." Without hesitation, I exclaimed, "Then let's go back right now." I wrapped my arm around her shoulder, said goodbye to Charlie, and practically dragged her out. I couldn't let her escape. It felt like a dream. I hadn't eaten in my last dream. This time I had to seize the moment. "Your payment code," I said. Victoria looked confused. Was she trying to back out? "Hurry, your payment code," I demanded. When she didn't move, I drunkenly reached for her bag. My hand slipped inside, and I touched something. Victoria froze and grabbed my hand. "Sincere, I'll get it. Let go," she said, her voice trembling. "No way. I'll feel better taking it myself," I insisted, thinking she was trying to back out. As I rummaged further, I muttered, "Victoria, why do you have such a big bun in here?" She bit her lip and said, "Sincere, take your hand out. That's not a bun." Victoria desperately tried to pull my hand out. I was incredulous. "Liar, if it's not a bun, what is it?" Then my eyes widened as realization hit me. Victoria's face turned beet red. My brain short-circuited and the alcohol buzz dissipated. Rubbing my temples, I mumbled, "Ugh, my head hurts," and played dead. When we got home, I bolted. Lying in bed, my heart raced. Closing my eyes, vivid and risque images flooded my mind. Tonight's dream, I eaten. The next morning, I murmured, "Morning, Dr. Vicky. I like you a little more today." But when I opened my eyes, I was still at home. The memories of last night made my face heat up. Holy crap, was that not a dream? I called Charlie to confirm if I had left with Victoria. When he said yes, I was overjoyed. Just as I hung up, I received a message from Victoria. "Is your head still spinning? Don't let your wound get wet. Stick to a light diet. If you can't get an appointment with your doctor, call me instead." Wait, scratch that. It's hard to book with them. Just come directly to me for follow-ups. No drinking or seeing other women while you're recovering. And about what I said yesterday, you can hold me to it any time. I stared at her message, stunned. A flood of messages filled my phone, and I couldn't help but smirk. It seemed like this young master might finally be off the market. Stay calm, I told myself. Stay calm. I couldn't let anything as embarrassing as yesterday happen again. I quickly typed a reply. "Doctor, Vicky, thank you for yesterday." After hitting send, I locked my screen and tossed my phone far away, as if keeping it out of reach would prevent me from doing anything foolish. On the other side of the screen, Victoria stared at the single message she had received. She refreshed her inbox over and over again, doubting the hospital's Wi-Fi. Then she switched to mobile data, but still, only that one message appeared. "Did I say something wrong earlier?" she wondered. Or is he losing interest? She scrolled back through their previous messages, meticulously rereading every word. Finally, she sent another message. I didn't mean to order you around. I just didn't want you drinking and aggravating your injury. Are you feeling unwell? Should you get another checkup? Anyway, don't let what happened yesterday bother you, I don't mind. When I saw Victoria's string of messages, I replied with a simple question mark. She immediately shot back, "You're a bit quiet today, aren't you?" I couldn't help but chuckle. "A little tipsy," I replied. "I'm actively avoiding addiction." She asked, "Tipsy from what?" "Take a guess," I wrote back. And just like that, for the first time, the brilliant Dr. Vicky was stumped by a question. What exactly was I tipsy from? 2 days later, I managed to secure an appointment with one of the senior doctors. During the visit, I learned that he usually didn't handle minor procedures like stitches. But because his work left no scars, Victoria had specifically asked him to suture my wound. Hearing this, a warm feeling spread through my chest. I messaged Victoria to let her know I was coming in for a follow-up appointment, and wondered if she'd be surprised to see me. With a spring in my step, I headed to her office. As I passed the nurse's station, I overheard 2 nurses chatting about Victoria's boyfriend. "Why is she telling everyone before they're even officially together?" one nurse said. I pricked up my ears, curious if they were talking about me. "You've seen them, right? Dr. Vicky and her boyfriend, they're such a perfect match," the other nurse replied. "Totally. And do you think it's because Dr. Vicky works here that her boyfriend transferred his dad to this hospital?" My smile froze. My heart skipped a beat. Whose dad? What's going on? Surely they weren't talking about me. Did Victoria already have a boyfriend? Trying to keep my composure, I asked the nurses, "Hi, I just heard you mention Victoria's boyfriend. Is that true?" They looked at me with pity, clearly aware of how much effort I had been putting into wooing Victoria. One of them hesitated before saying, "Yes, we're pretty sure it's her boyfriend. He just dropped off some fruit to thank us for taking care of her." Hearing this, I felt half relieved. Ha! He's just like I used to be, claiming to be her boyfriend. As long as Victoria hadn't confirmed it, I wasn't going to give up so easily. Fixing my hair, I headed to her office first, before finally finding her in a patient's room. I was already planning how to tease her when I saw a tall, lean man standing close to her, his arm draped around her shoulders. He sighed and said, "Dad, don't worry about the surgery. This hospital has some of the best doctors around. You need to get better so Victoria and I can start planning our wedding. You've got to stay healthy." My mind went blank. Victoria was getting married? This had to be a misunderstanding. Definitely a misunderstanding. She hadn't said anything yet. But the next moment, Victoria's response crushed me completely. "Uncle, don't worry. I'll take good care of you. And Ethan, you can relax too," she said. My breath caught, my chest tightening painfully. As they turned and walked out, I stumbled, trying to avoid them, but I tripped over the door frame. Ignoring the pain in my foot, I limped away as fast as I could. Once I was out of the room, the burning pain in my ankle became unbearable. I took off my shoe and saw that my ankle was bright red and swollen. The emotional pain surged back, and I crouched in the hallway, fists clenched, my face contorted in anguish. "Damn you, Victoria. You had a boyfriend all along and still toyed with my feelings." Suddenly, a small voice interrupted my thoughts. "Big brother, are you pooping?" Startled, I looked up to see a little girl peeking at me from behind a corner. "No." I quickly stood and moved to sit on a nearby bench. She climbed up beside me with a little grunt, swinging her legs as she asked, "You weren't pooping? Are you sick? You look like you're in pain. Is your tummy upset?" I stared at her bald little head, my throat feeling tight. "No, it's just my foot." "It hurts a bit," I said. She reached into her pocket, rummaging around before pulling out a slightly melted lollipop. "Here," she said. "Dr. Vicky says sweets make everything better." "Thank you," I said, taking the candy as a warmth spread through my chest. She patted my hand with her tiny one and said, "No, I should be thanking you. My mom said that without you I wouldn't have been able to have my surgery." I froze, my heart melting a little at her words. Glancing at her hospital bracelet, I noticed her name, Hope. "Thank you isn't necessary," I said softly. "Once your surgery is done, let's watch the fireworks together, okay?" "Okay," she replied enthusiastically, extending her hand for a pinky promise. "See you later, big brother." "See you later, Dr. Vicky," she said as she skipped away. My body stiffened as the scene from just moments ago replayed in my mind. Without looking back, I limped forward. Victoria called out, "Sincere, what happened to your leg?" "It's nothing. Don't trouble yourself," I replied, quickening my pace despite the pain twisting my face. Suddenly, a sigh sounded from behind me. Victoria hurried to catch up and stood in front of me. "Doesn't it hurt? Still trying to act tough? I'm sorry, I missed your message earlier. Let me take a look at your leg, okay?" she said gently with a hint of pretense. How could I have been so blind before? "No need," I said coldly. "Dr. Vicky, you should spend your time caring for your patients instead of wasting it on someone as insignificant as me. Sincere, I really was seeing a very important patient just now," she explained, grabbing my hand in a slight plea. It was urgent. How could it not be urgent when it involved my father-in-law? "Dr. Vicky, please move aside," I said, struggling to leave, but she caught hold of my arm and supported me. Before I knew it, I was leaning on her shoulder in front of everyone, with her guiding me forward. Her actions drew the attention of many people, and though her gaze was steady, her flushed face and neck betrayed her embarrassment. "Victoria, let go of me," I said. "No, you'll fall," she replied firmly. "Dr. Vicky, let go. This is not good for your reputation," my tone turning even colder. She snorted. "If you keep shouting, the whole hospital will know about us." "About us?" I questioned, confused. "What's there between us?" Her face grew even redder. "I like you. What else could there be?" she confessed. My mind went blank. If it had been before, I would have been ecstatic and announced it to the whole hospital. But now, all I could do was laugh at the irony. Just as I was about to retort, I caught sight of the lollipop sticking out of Victoria's pocket and thought of the girl I'd seen earlier. Maybe I should talk to her directly and clear things up. With a mischievous smirk, I tightened my grip on her shoulder and pulled her head closer to rest against mine. Her face turned an even deeper shade of red, which only fueled my annoyance. "Victoria, let go. We need to talk," I said. I was genuinely worried about parading around the hospital like this. If that man really was her boyfriend, his father would be furious seeing us like this. Seeing my determination, Victoria finally led me back to her office. She helped me ice my foot, placing it on her lap. Her head bowed slightly, her long hair framing her face, blurring her features but not her focused expression. "Victoria," I began, "I heard everything." "It's all rumors," she said. "Don't pay attention to them, but honestly it's only a matter of time." Her words made me retract my foot immediately. Gritting my teeth, I asked, "So you're really getting married?" She froze, shock flashing in her eyes. "Are you proposing to me? Isn't this a bit too fast?" she asked, deep in thought. After a moment, she looked at me seriously and asked, "Have you thought this through? Shouldn't we date first?" My mind was a mess, unable to process her words. Seeing my silence, she, seemingly afraid I'd change my mind, quickly added, I'm in. Let's meet each other's parents, get the marriage license, and then plan the wedding. I'll finish the surgeries I have scheduled and take my vacation. We can be married in 2 months. Listening to her meticulously laid out plans, I couldn't help but interrupt. "Victoria, bigamy is illegal." She froze, blinking in confusion. "I'm only marrying you. How would it be bigamy?" "Victoria, I never thought you'd be this kind of person," I said. "You just promised that man's father you'd marry his son, and now you want a shotgun wedding with me. Who are you lying to, him or me?" She frowned. "What man? What bigamy? Sincere, I've never lied to you. The only person I've ever liked is you. If I get married, it'll only ever be to you." Victoria was so flustered she started speaking incoherently. I replied, "Just now in the hospital room, there was a man holding you, saying you two were getting married. I heard it all." The more I spoke, the angrier I became, my voice trembling with rage. "No, "That's not true," she said, standing up abruptly, her hand hovering in the air, unsure whether to reach for me. "That was my classmate. His father didn't want to undergo surgery, so he asked me to help convince him. I don't know why he leaned in like that. His father's condition is critical, and I was afraid denying it outright would upset the patient. But as soon as I left the room, I cleared things up with him. Sincere, please believe me." My heart raced as I struggled to respond. Seeing my hesitation, Victoria, looking pitiful, said, "If I'm lying to you, I'll—" Before she could finish, I stood up, cupped her face, and kissed her. Her eyes widened and she froze in place. "I believe you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood," I said. Her face turned crimson as she stood there, completely flustered. You. How could you?" She stammered slightly. My thoughts raced, and I immediately pinned her against the wall and kissed her again. Her flushed face was so close, radiating heat, and her heartbeat seemed loud enough to drown me. Victoria shyly covered her face, blinked, and said, "You kissed me. Now you have to take responsibility." I responded earnestly, enunciating each word. "Responsibility? I'll take full responsibility." "Good. As long as there's no bone damage," Victoria said, glancing at my x-rays with relief. Meanwhile, I looked around the room, my gaze suddenly landing on the doctor's profile hanging by the door. I exclaimed, "Miss Tina, you and Victoria share the exact same birthday. What a coincidence." It was just small talk, but out of nowhere, Victoria asked about my injured foot. She turned to Tina and asked, "Tina, is my boyfriend's injury going to be okay?" Tina looked confused and replied, "Didn't you just make the diagnosis yourself?" Clearing her throat awkwardly, Victoria said, "I just wanted to double-check." She then helped me out of the room under Tina's puzzled gaze. The moment we entered her office, Victoria wrapped her arms around my neck. Her eyes were red, and she looked a little aggrieved as she said, "Sincere, Tina has a boyfriend, you know." Exasperated, I replied, "What does her relationship status have to do with me?" She pouted and said, "I heard everything. You only like me because of that fortune teller. And now Tina shares the same birthday as me. What if you end up liking her too?" I couldn't help but laugh at her sudden outburst. So her recent shift in attitude toward me was because of this? I gently took her hand, patiently explaining, "Victoria, it's true that the fortune teller played a small role in my initial pursuit of you. But during our time together at the hospital, I came to see how you light up every room you walk into. Your every gesture stirs something in me. I like you, not because of some fortune teller, but because my feelings for you are real and from the heart." Hearing this, her eyes sparkled even brighter. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. "Good, that's all I needed to hear," she whispered. When I took Victoria home, I leaned in close and whispered in her ear, "Miss Victoria, so what's our relationship now?" She smiled and said, "The kind you're thinking of." I teased, "And what kind is that exactly?" I brushed my fingers against her cheek, making her blush. She softly replied, "Boyfriend and girlfriend." Smiling, I said, "Then, Dr. Vicky, when you said I could do anything I wanted last time, did you mean it?" My hand deliberately grazed her lips, my tone suggestive. Victoria froze for a moment, her gaze heating up. She bit her lip softly and with a husky voice said, "Sincere, stop that. You're still injured." I replied, "It's just a twisted ankle. It doesn't affect my performance." I smirked as my fingers trailed downward inch by inch. Finally, Victoria gave in. The usually gentle and composed Victoria was completely unrestrained in bed. Good news, I made it to her thighs. Bad news, my back was done for. On our wedding day, I bought a copy of the Book of Answers. My question was, how should we spend our wedding night? When I saw the book's answer, my first instinct was to flee. Since when is keep going non-stop a reasonable response? After that night, I blocked the fortune teller right in front of Victoria. I swore I'd never believe in such things again. I even advised her to stop relying on them too.